I think it's recording. Yes, it's recording. Okay, so here we are. We're recording. I'm going to move you back as far as I can so that when I stand up, you can see me. How about that? So let me tell you a little bit about me. Y'all, those of you that don't know me, I'm a fairly new quilter, believe it or not. I've only been doing this for about 3.5 years. I guess, yeah, this summer was about 3.5, 4 years. And I fell hard. I fell in love hard. And I quilted everything that I could find to quilt. I was at her house all the time, on the phone with her, on the video phone with her. Terry, what do I do now? What do I do now? And if I wasn't doing that, I was on the internet looking up, watching videos. Y'all, I have no idea how many videos I've watched. But I have been teaching people how to do what I do since the early 90s. And after I left Fayetteville Tech, I thought to myself, you know what? I can teach people how to do this. I can do this. I can do it on the internet, because I don't know anybody around here that does virtual classes. So this is kind of my niche. Okay. I have met some of the most wonderful people I have ever met through quilting. This quilting subculture, y'all, is the most accepting, most wonderful, helpful group of people I have ever met. If you don't know how to do something, just ask somebody. You can't be afraid to ask. Like, all you got to do is ask somebody, and they're gonna help you. So, teaching, yes, I've been teaching people professionally since the early 90s. So, like I say, teaching is kind of my thing. I love teaching adults. I don't have much patience for teaching smaller people. I would love to be more patient, and I try really, really hard to be patient with little people, because I love little people. I was a pediatric nurse, y'all. You don't qualify. You're over 18. So I teach big people. I like teaching big people, because big people want to know why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. You know, if you can figure out a way to tell them why, they work with you. You know what I mean? Little people, if they don't get it, they just don't get it. You know, you got that deer in the headlights look, like a hog looking at the wristwatch, right? Yeah. I don't want that. Don't need that. So, here we are at Queen Bee Quilting's first block of the month. So I would like to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for participating with my block of the month. I hope that it turns out to be everything you want it to be. If I do something that you think I could do better, please don't hesitate to let me know. This is where we will be meeting. I am virtually recording this class so that if you want to see how I did things a second time, I'm working with my webmaster right now on how to put it on my website so that you guys can go back in and look and watch that part, just like you would watch somebody else's one of Jenny Doan's video. Okay, I'm not Jenny, but I'm not Jenny. Okay, I'll be your Jenny. So so we'll have recorded. I'm gonna record these classes. You'll be able to go to my website and rewatch the class if you need to. Because we're gonna do a block or two here today. I hope we can move along quick enough that everybody can do a block except you, Pam. I do have your kit coming. It is in the mail, but it's in the hands of the United States Postal Service right now. So, with no further ado, we are going to jump out here. So let me tell you about this quilt. Okay, this quilt is a sampler, a traditional sampler quilt. There's lots of stars, lots of half square triangles, some flip and stitch corners. It is pretty much a very good, beautiful, basic level, beginner level, confident beginner level quilt. And I think everybody in here has the capability of doing that. There are quilters in this room that have not done a whole lot, as you've heard, that will need more help than others. So if y'all don't mind, help each other. Just like I said, this is the helpingest subculture I've ever been a part of. A lot of you I know through nursing. Some of you I have EMS connections with, and the rest of you, we're just quilt buddies. And I like my little quilt besties. Yes, he did. How about that?
You didn't tell me there was a quilt.
So I do. I have a 10 by 10 booth that I set up. I love going to the vendor events. I come out. I bring quilts. I bring samples of my long arm work because not only do I teach classes, I have a long arm and I do long arm. I have a long arm service that I do. And I've done some of your quilts. There's 3 or 4 others, 5 others of you that I'm either going to have done them already or going to do some more. So I just want to put that out there. I do custom work if you want custom work. But it's pretty much standard across the board, 2 inches square inch for an edge to edge. So that's out there. Now let's talk about this quilt. So this quilt was designed for me at my request by Abby Dollinger. So those of you that don't know Abby, she is a local celebrity quilt designer, and she does a lot of teaching. She's taught at Loving Stitches in Fayetteville. She also does a lot of teaching at So There in Andrew, and we just love Abby. Yes. She is, y'all. She's awesome. She's an awesome designer. She's an awesome instructor, and we love her very much. So those of you that have done Abby quilt, this is a very, very, very much an Abby quilt. So without further ado, let me show you the quilt. Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. Isn't it gorgeous? Finished. She did a beautiful job. So this is what you're going to be making today. How about that? This is the quilt, Pam. How about that? Isn't that gorgeous?
It's really nice. I wish I could see the other half. Is there any way you can like raise it up a little bit?
How about that?
There you go. Yeah, that's really nice.
Okay.
Really pretty.
All right. So we'll spread this out across a couple of chairs to give you a little incentive today. How about that? Come up and look and touch it. So I will tell you guys that I want to first start by telling you that I've got your kits with me today. And let's see. Terry, I got your pen. What else do I have? She hates penning. She hates the penning. Okay, so Pam, I need to I sent you a kit that has your first month's instructions in it. I don't know if I sent you this, so I will make sure that with your next kit, I will send this because in the kit is your instruction sheet for the blocks. Okay, they are colored. Okay, here we go. Everybody, take one, pass it out. Take one, pass them down. Got more. Here we got more. Here we go. Got one more. Who's not got one? All right. So who needs a queenie bag? Pass that down. Anybody else want a bag? Sonny want a bag? Yeah. I will tell you, they're a sweet little shopping bag, but in the little gussets, and I sent you one, Pam. This little seam right here, they hooked it up with a basting stitch. You turn the bag inside out and put your real stitch in there, and it'll last you a little longer. Thank you. So as you can see in your kit, you got your colored picture. Can I see your kit just for a moment? So your kit will come. Who got the kit with no instructions? I got your instructions. And then. Okay. You're welcome. Okay. So, let me get back down to month. There we go. So I have these I think the rest of them have. Yep. I'll say these. All right. So the next thing that I'm gonna pass out is this little list right here that tells you where your fabric for some of your blocks is going to come from. So I'm going to tell you, be very careful with your cutting. Try to be as accurate with your cutting as you can be, because I'm including fabric. So like if you'll notice in this first kit, your B fabric, your background fabric, your B fabric, there's a lot of it in this first kit. That's because the first star you're going to do calls for more B background than I think you have in your kit, okay, in just the regular fat quarter. There's another fat quarter, but then there's yardage of this too, because we're going to use this one a lot. This is your background for all your stuff, as you can see. There's a lot of white in there. So you're going to be keeping fabric and reusing certain pieces throughout the quilt, okay? So be very careful with your cutting. Cut as close to other places as you can, and keep all your little scraps, because you're going to have to reuse it from month to month, okay? Not always the same color, but, and if you cut very carefully, you will have enough scraps left over to actually do the binding on your quilt. If y'all look, Abby has made a scrappy binding for the binding on her sample. Okay. Abby was going to try to join us this morning, and she may actually pop in a little later, but she said she's had something come up this morning, and she's very sorry that she didn't be able to join us. But she will may pop in a little bit later. Okay, so we talked about making sure, one of the things Abby likes to do in her classes, and I think it's a fabulous idea, is to make sure that your sewing machine, your needle is set, so, and you know that you're sewing exactly a 1/4 inch seam. Again, I don't know if anybody knows the index card trick, but the red line, if you put your needle on the red line, the very next line is a 1/4 of an inch away. You can use any size index card, 3x5, 5x7, whatever you got. That works. The little plastic, the little acrylic things, you can get those to double check make sure one, you got, if you're using seam tape, I applaud you. I love seam tape. I think it's very helpful, especially when you're chain piecing. So that's that. Okay, so let's talk about some rulers. The next thing I want to cover is seam allowances. While we're talking about seam allowances and making sure that you're sewing a good 1/4 inch seam allowance, the next thing I want to talk about is a scant 1/4 of an inch. Okay, this pattern is designed to use a scant 1/4. Okay, not a full 1/4, but a scant 1/4. So what that means is that when you put that needle down, you think about it this way: put the needle down and look at where your 1/4 inch is on your machine. Look at your seam tape. Look at your little acrylic ruler. Make sure that you're at a 1/4 inch. You're going to go 1 or 2 threads inside that 1/4 inch. Okay. And the reason we do that is because over the width of the quilt, you can actually lose size due to the fold where you fold your fabric. And when you're doing a half square triangle or a flip and stitch corner like we did on the star legs on our beginner quilt, you can actually lose material, lose distance, and then your quilt blocks don't come out to be the right size. So all of these blocks are going to be sewn with a scant 1/4 of an inch. So it's going to look a little small to you. And if it looks like it's a 1/4 of an inch, it's probably too big. You need to watch that, okay? Now we know that your machine, your foot is way outside. Stacy, yours is a little bit too, so to watch, okay? You have to make it skinny. So I need you to measure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this, like if you draw for you diagonal. If you go on the other, right on the other side of the pencil drawing, does that work?
Yes. So that's the other thing. When we start talking about drawing diagonal lines, you're going to cut squares. We're going to cut fabric here in a minute. When you cut your squares, you're going to always mark your lighter colored square. Okay. I have pencils. I have a pencil sharpener if somebody didn't bring a pencil or a marking tool. So when you mark that line, you're going to mark it straight on the diagonal. Okay, you're going to mark it at the center from corner to corner. Okay. When you get ready to stitch, you need to identify which is the outside of the line and this is going to be the inside. So the inside will be the part that flips out. Okay, the outside is the part you're going to cut off. Okay, you want to sew 1 or 2 threads just to the outside of the line. And I'm going to tell you, on my machine with my foot, how I get that is there's a little hole, a little hallway that runs up to your needle so that you can see your fabric going through, right? So if I put the edge of that hallway, that little narrow hallway, on the line, then my needle is just to the left of that line 1 or 2 threads, and that's how I line mine up. Now you're going to have to figure out on your machine where that 1 or 2 threads over to the outside is. Another trick, and I'm going to show you that trick when we get to it here in a minute, is I take and draw a line. I actually draw an arrow, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. This is the first block that we're going to make today. This is the Sister's Choice Variation. Okay, that's the big block. Y'all notice that some of these blocks are great big blocks. Makes it easier. The pieces are easier to handle. Then we're going to do smaller blocks. Okay. So this will be the other blocks that we're going to do. So they look different, but they're not different. It's the exact same block, just using different fabric. So I've got samples, examples, and we're going to go through that. So with that being said, because I had so much interest, I gave up my fat quarter bundle so that y'all could all do. So I'm using a different fabric line, but I wanted to do it so that you can see, okay? And just so y'all know, my block does not come out exactly, but that's okay. I think if I could reblock it when I get home. I'm a little short on this side for whatever reason. It does a little whoop like this, but I think I can see that it's kind of rippled on this side. So I think the moisture from my best press scrumped the fabric a little bit. And it happened. Am I panicked about it? No. No. But if y'all want to take a look at that. And I am an open the seam girl. Okay? I press mine open. I do that because I long arm. And I know what a pain in the neck it is to have 8 pieces of fabric come to one little point, and I'm trying to quilt over 16 layers of fabric at a time. I love y'all, but please think about your long arm. They don't make those big industrial needles big enough sometimes to get through that. I've had quilts where I've broken stitches, I've broken needles, tried to go over those big lumps. So think about that when you're making your quilt. Your quilt needs to look as nice on the back as it does on the front. Just makes it easier to quilt over top. So, it is. It's a gorgeous little fabric line. I don't even know the name of it right off the top of my head. Okay, so I'm going to introduce a couple of concepts. Bonnie was talking about drawing your diagonal line. Okay, I don't know if y'all can all see this, but when you draw that, you see that? Draw the diagonal line on the instructions. Oh, bless you. The instructions tell you that you're going to sew on either side of the line. You're going to sew 1/4 inch away. So what I did is I put my blade on the line, the blade of my 1/4 inch foot. I put that on the line and I sewed 1/4 inch away. And then I turned it around and I sewed the other direction. Now the reason that you turn it around and sew the other direction is, one, it's easier. It's easier to see your 1/4 inch. It's on the right side of the needle. You don't turn it around, it's on the wrong side of the needle. But if you're going to quilt your quilts on your domestic machines at home, which can be done, it absolutely can be done, but when you stitch one way, you need to turn around and go the other way, because otherwise you end up with ripples going down the back of your quilt. You end up with puckers on your quilt. So we don't want to do that with our quilt pieces. We want them to lay nice and flat. So you can pass that around so everybody can see. And that's going to make a half square triangle. That's going to make this block. Or this one. So this is your centerpiece. Okay, so you're gonna have half-square triangles coming around to make this little piece. If you look at your pattern, and that is going to end up, I'll show you, making this part right here. Okay, half-square triangles. The half-square triangles are going to go out here and in here. Okay, so the instructions will tell you that you will make 2 sets. Okay, so when you get to cutting your pattern, cutting your material, one thing that I find when I'm cutting is that I like to use the little tags, and you can use these, guys. You can buy these fancy little things right here, the little alphabets. You can pin them with your nails. You can use sticky notes. I am the queen of the sticky note. Yeah. So until I found some that I could afford or found them on sale, I was using sticky notes on my fabric colors. One good thing that Abby did when she was writing these directions for us is she put your picture right here, and these are the order that she pulls the fabric from for that block. If you look, your instructions are colored, they're in color, and they're in color for a reason so that you can see the fabric that you're supposed to use for that block. Okay? If you need to, you can label them A, B, C, D. And if you, in her instructions, it does tell you under cutting which fabric she's calling A, which one she's calling B. Background is always background, but then there'll be an A, B, C, D. And because when you're making your half square triangles, you've got to pay attention to what colors you're putting together. Now, I like to do all my cutting first, get the cutting out of the way, and then I have all my pieces. So, there's nothing terribly difficult about this block. Okay, oh, I want to show you this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the flip and stitch. Okay, so if you look, I'm going to pass this around. If you look, I've drawn my line, and then I drew an arrow pointing to my outside. That way I know which, and if you look real close at my stitching, you'll see just how far away from that line I went. It's not right on the line. And I'm going to tell you, there's another little thing that you need to do with that, is that once you sew, run your seam, go ahead and flip it up. If you can't flip it up and finger press it out, if it doesn't quite match up, you and Jack need a moment alone. Take it out and redo it. Maybe you need to come over just another thread. But the reason we do that is because when you fold it over, y'all, there's fabric along this edge where the stitching is, and it takes up space, and you're going to end up with a rectangle or a square that's not quite rectangular or square. It'll be too small. If it's too big, hallelujah. Okay, too big is one thing. Too small, you can't. You cut off extra. You can't put some on with you once you cut it off. Okay, so make sure before you cut that extra off that you finger press it open and make sure that it's enough fabric there. Now, I will tell you something else that I did with this one. So, if y'all look, these are your half square triangles, right? Here. Okay. With this one, what I did was, I left a 1/4 inch once I sewed that. Who's got the center? Okay. So once I sewed my seam, where'd the other one go? Did I get it back? Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Once I cut these apart, okay, I went back before I cut anything off. Okay, I went back off the half square triangles. I went back and sewed another 1/4 of an inch away from from my seam line, and on the part that I was going to get rid of, I did another 1/4 of an inch seam, and I was able to use those in these blocks. They're matching, same fabric line, right? Because you're going to have some where you cut where you cut it off, and that part that you're cutting off is big enough that you can save them for something else. And in this case, I use them. Now they end up with only having an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, okay? Because I cut in the middle of that 1/4 of an inch, but that gave me plenty to be able to use over here. And I'll send these around so you can see. Stuck in here. You see how small that seam allowance is on there. Another thing too. Okay.
Maybe
So when I was making my half square triangle, the part that I ended up discarding, because I guess maybe, I don't know if I made too many or what, but with the number that she has you make, I ended up with extra. And my extra I used in this block.
Oh, okay.
I sewed it just 1/4 of an inch away from that seam line, and the part that I was going to discard, and it was on these. Right, when I did the flip and stitch, and there you can see it. When you do the flip and stitch, okay, the part that you cut off, it's not the half square triangles, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to confuse anybody, it's the flip and stitch corners on the big rectangles. Okay? I saved those. So I would sew, with it open, okay, with it still flat, I would sew another 1/4 of an inch away from that seam to the outside, okay? I would go along here, and I would sew another seam 1/4 of an inch away. And that gives me another triangle, another half square triangle that's actually usable. So I use those on my smaller blocks, to make my smaller blocks. Because otherwise you've got to do more cutting.
I see what you're saying.
I'm all about
a step staple.
That's what I'm thinking. I needed to make them quick, so I made them quick. Yeah, and I do that a lot. Anytime I've got to make a half square triangle or a flip and stitch, and I think I'm not going to use the other half, oh yeah, I run me another 1/4 of an inch line right away from that from the seam, not from the line, from the seam. Because what I do is I go ahead, like I said, I finger press them up, and once I'm okay with the fact that I've got enough on my flip up peaks, I'll iron it down. I'll press it down. Okay. Then I take it, because it's a nice crease. I will bump my pressure foot right up against and run that seam, and I do it 1/4 of an inch away. A lot of people would tell you they don't like to do that because it only leaves you a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. But what I do is I drop, because I'm an open ironer, okay, I drop my stitch length to 1.8. My machine comes up and does it 2.2. You see y'all doing it 2? A 2 stitch length in your machine. I drop mine back a little bit. Okay, and I do that because it gives me a tighter connection there, a tighter stitch, and because I open it up, I don't want mine to have big gaps where you can see the thread. So I use a smaller stitch on it, just like you would do if you were doing paper piecing. You get that paper off the back and shorten the stitch length. Okay, have I thoroughly confused everybody? Good. Then I'm on track. Okay, so I'm missing a piece of fabric. Oh, here. Okay. No, you're fine. You're fine. I just want everybody to be able to see. You guys are welcome to come up and look. You need to look at my board. That's fine. So that is for this block. Okay, everybody, everybody's good? Okay. So I'm gonna put this up here. It's not there, maybe here. There we go. Now, let's look at, okay, so I want to talk to you now about your half square triangles. Okay, it tells you with your half square triangles that you need to trim your half square triangle to, what is it, 2.5? 2.5 or 3.5? Trim all half square triangles to 3.5-inch square. So there's a lot of different tools out there. For all my beginners, I've told you, there's a tool for everything. Okay, and you just got to find what works good for you. So for trimming and having accurate size half square triangles, you may want to look at some different tools, and I'm going to suggest some. So there is just a square ruler, okay? I think a 6 or 6.5-inch square ruler is a fabulous size. If yours is bigger, great. But you got to have at least 3.5 inches, or otherwise you won't be able to square up your stuff. Notice that your square ruler's got all kinds of diagonal lines on it. You'll use those, and I will help you. We will help you. If you don't already know how to square up a block, you can use this once you press your seam open. You use these to square the entire block with it open. Okay? Another tool that you can use, this is one of the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmers. I saw this, Jenny Doan had this one, and I absolutely thought that was the catch me out, because it's got the little side things. You go in there and trim those little dog ears off while you're trimming your block up. You get it all done at one time. You don't even have to open the block and iron it. You just cut it. Okay? So what you do is with this one is you'll take, I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's got your dotted lines that go across the ruler, and that's where you put your seam line, because it looks like a seam line. The little dotted lines across look like a seam line. That's exactly where you put it. The little grayed area is the area where your seam allowance goes. Okay, so if I was going to square this one up, what I would do is I would put, like this one is 3.5, maybe. Oh no, this is for the area. I think I need to. See, this one ends up being a 2.5. So if I was going to trim this 2.5, I would put the little dotted line along my stitch line and leave that seam allowance hanging in the gray area there, and then I would trim around, and then in the little slot to the side, and it's got a bigger area and it stops it. So you don't have to mash real hard and put a lot of pressure when you're cutting that. If you're cutting with a big sharp blade, it'll notch off your dog ears, and that way when you open her up, the presser, she's already got these little dog ears trimmed off at the end. It's wonderful. So there's another one out there in case you have that one. Anybody here got a block lock? Okay, so if you're a block lock person, and they are wonderful rulers. I found this one first. So I bought a set. So if I had not, I would have bought a block lock. Block lock rulers actually have got a little bumper, and you bump your fabric up against it to whatever size you want it to be, and then you trim it, and it holds it. So and it's B-L-O-C-K-L-O-C, block lock. But I love these Clearly Perfect. They come in 3 different sizes. You can get quarter-inch, half-inch, and whole-inch rulers. This is the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer set. I do not carry these in my store. I would love to. I will look and see if I can carry them in my online shop. If you're interested, if anybody's interested, I'll be happy to see if I can order some. I don't carry a lot of these because I just haven't had that many customers buying from my online store yet. So I'm trying to carry just a minimum. But I just wanted y'all to know that these are out there, and you can get them. I know Missouri Star once in a while puts their rulers on sale. If y'all are not buying stuff from Missouri Star when they have their stuff on their daily deal, y'all are missing out. is you can get stuff almost at wholesale prices. When I was buying wholesale for myself, because I'm like you, Bonnie, I have a room.
Yeah.
I have a room full of fabric, and I've bought a lot of stuff, but I bought it almost at wholesale prices because I watch that daily deal. I have the app downloaded on my phone, and I look every day. See if they have something I think I need. And their tools and their rulers, this one came from, and their rulers are great because they kind of go on the top. They're easy to find. That's what I like about them. They're yellow, they're easy to find. Okay, so use whatever method you have to square your blocks. The instructions are I think they're very well written and easy to understand. If you have trouble, if you have issues, please don't hesitate to either ask somebody or ask me. I'll see what I know, and if I don't know, we'll find a video that'll show us how to do it. But I think when I was making them, I think I whipped right through them, so I was pretty happy. So with no further ado, I think the second pattern, the paddle star, it's all about laying out your pieces. So once you get your stuff cut and your little pieces made, okay, scant seams, scant 1/4 inch seams. When you get ready to put these blocks together, y'all use your pins. Pins are your friend. Y'all see Nemo? It's your friend. Pins are your friends. They will help you to line up your seams more accurately. And when you're sewing a diagonal seam to another block, you want to make sure that you're hitting at the right spot, that you're connecting at the right spot. So use your pins. If you're not sure, I will come help you once you get to that point. Again, please don't hesitate to ask, but please use your pins. 2 of each. Okay, so the cutting is a little confusing on this second block. And it tells you that you can cut this or that. You can cut this color or that color. If you're going to use your little cutoffs, then you've already got your color selections made. If you're going to use this, otherwise you're going to need to pick a color. And you're using those colors, the same colors as from the big block, but you're using the same colors in this smaller block, because this is a 6-inch block, little small block. But there's some tricks, y'all. Those of you that are beginners, there's some tricks to making sure that you're getting your points lined up so that everything meets nicely in the little corners. Okay, go slow with your sewing. Make sure that you're maintaining that 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way through whatever little section you're sewing. Okay, and pin. Look how nice and straight those lines are, how all the little points come together on the front. That's because I pin. The trick with pinning, I have found, for me, the trick with pinning is that I leave the pin in as it goes under the pressure foot. I don't pull it out until it gets right up to my needle. I slow down that much when I'm going over pins because, one, I don't want to bust a needle. Have I busted needles in the past? Sure I have. I get way closer than I thought I was, especially before I got new glasses. Now I have these, and I made her tell me what was the next up magnification, and I went and bought me some reader glasses so I can really get in there. So whatever you got to do, but get your pin right up to the needle. Then take the pin out. Now it's a little tough to pull that pin out. You might pop the heads off the pins. Don't be surprised. Lift your presser foot just a little bit. Make sure your needle's down. But lift your presser foot up just enough to get that pin out there. Okay? That's how you're going to get those accurate points You don't chop points off. Okay, we don't want to cut points off. Okay, if it's supposed to be pointy, you want it pointy. Okay, you want to have enough room. By sewing accurate seam allowances, you're going to have enough room on the outside where you would join it to the next piece that it doesn't cut a point off. Okay? Alright, so with that being said, that one little section right there I thought was a little confusing when I was cutting it, but like I said, I used my scrap pieces, and I still had a couple left over. So at this point, with no further ado, I'm going to allow you guys to go ahead and start your cutting. Press your fabric. I'm a big proponent of pressing before you start cutting. That way you don't have wrinkles from your fat quarters. But you do you. Okay? Anybody have any questions? Are we going to do from the fat quarter to the tuck? You can. You can use the fat quarter instead. I think there's enough fabric that you can use the fat quarter.
Which one are we doing first? This one?
You can do whichever one you want to do. I would recommend that you do the big one first. Do the Sister's Choice first. The irons are all hot and ready to go. There's a little best press back there. I'm going to tell y'all a secret I do with my best press. I dilute mine with water, half and half. My best press goes farther, goes twice as far, and I still get enough stiffening that I'm satisfied with the result. So I dilute mine, because best press is not cheap. It's not cheap. So yeah. When it says at the end to you should come out with this size block or that size block, not everybody has the big trimmer. I bought this one because I had to have it for I'm doing an applique quilt, and I had to have a 16.5-inch block, and this is the only one I could find. I've got the stuff on here, the washi tape. If y'all are not using washi tape, I love washi tape. You can get washi tape in clearance at any of your favorite hobby stores. They use washi tape for everything. When you find it on sale, grab your ruler. You can use it to mark your ruler. Okay, so you see that I've marked out my 14.5-inch where I want my Sister's Choice to come out. These are the size of the big blocks in the quilt. So unfinished, once you get it all together, it's still considered unfinished. It's only finished once you get it in the quilt. Then it's a finished block.
The big star one, is that Cattle Star?
No, that's the Cattle Star is the small one. This is the Sister's Choice.
Okay.
You said the fat quarter will be big enough?
Should be.
Should be. So, this is, okay. If you look down, and show me the bed. And it's going to look bad. It's not going to come to a point there, but when you get ready, just the boot quarter when it's done. Okay? So when you get ready to get make it change and the sewing it thing, you want this side, press it up, and you want this side up. Okay? So you run your seam, and you want to run the middle right across that point right there. So you just do, you're going to come across right there. That way when you open this up, you'll have your entire cut. Okay? And I'll show you, you can do that with a pin. because I pin, because I pin my seams, because I iron my seams open. Woo! Speed demon, speed breaker. Double pin. Sometimes I triple pin. If you left before because I was talking about pinning. But what I'll do is I'll run the pin right through, and that way I'm sure I'm pulling the seam on that side and the seam on that side, and line them up. Line the center, and then I put the left pin in, and then the right pin in. Okay? So when you get ready to pin this, what it is, you put the pin in right here. So that you're sure that you're going again. Here. That way I'm sure the seam lined up, and then I put the pin in the top here. And then I would run it through. Okay? Does that make sense to you? We're talking about the protection and the protection of the piece. Okay? I'm not cutting it. Just how to protect it. Okay? Anybody else want to see my pinning? Want to see how I do this? If I got some OCD stuff about the whole so when you sew this together, certain pages to be afforded in this thing right there. And that'll when you flip this over, you flip this about a quarter of an inch. If you're sewing correctly, that should not chop this corner off. Oh, okay. If we want to see this. Okay. So let me tell you how to fudge some stuff. Remember we talked about fudging? Those of you that have taken my classes, and you're starting, and we talked about fudging. So when you get ready to sew your seam, if you're just a little short and you think your whatever doesn't line up quite right, when you get ready to sew your seam, okay, you think you're gonna be a little short, you can make you a little detour. But what you want to do is you want to run that needle right across, just to the outside of where your point is going to be. Because remember, when we flip that over, we don't want to cut that point off. We want that little point. We want that little point to be nice and crisp, and we want to be able to see the whole thing. We don't want to chop it off. So what I do is, if I have to, I don't do this on every one. First off, I use a pin. And I go in from the back, and I line my seam up, and I put a pin right in that point, right where it comes together, on the back. See where the fabric's folded over? I put a pin in there. And my other piece, I try to find a quarter inch down on that other piece, and I'll pin it. Try to get them together. That way, first off, my seam lines up. Yeah, the seam lines up. Okay, so now I know I got them. Now I know I got my seams lined up straight. Okay, so now when I get ready to run that seam across there, I will guide my needle. I will guide my fabric to that point where that pin sits right there. I will guide my needle to that point. I may just have to make just a little when I get there. You know what I mean? But it should be just a little bit of something. Okay. If you're having to pull your fabric because you've got one side that doesn't quite meet where it should, you always want to put the long side down on the bed of your sewing machine. Did y'all know that? Yeah, so if you've got two pieces and you've got one of them that sticks out farther than the other one does, put that one down. So, here's another little tip. I heard this the other day and it blew my mind. Y'all ever been sewing along and you pull your seam out and you've had to sew open seams and you've run over your seam and it flips it the other way? What that is you've got a lip from where you're going from your sewing machine right here. You've got a bump right there and it catches. Take you a piece of blue painter's tape or a piece of your diagonal seam tape and run it across this way. That way there's not a lip to catch that piece of fabric to push it up. How about that? Y'all, I'm full of trivia. That's what I call toilet trivia. I love toilet trivia. I love it. But anybody wants to see this, you're welcome to take a look at this. I know we're not sewing this piece yet, but some of that comes into play on your big one too. Okay, on your big square, which is the one we should start with, the one I recommend you start with. And I will stop the recording at this point.